Welcome to the J.R. Hendrick Texan Gentleman, podcast that deals with the early life of J.R. Hendrick, and now narrating J.R. and Jimmy. Now, the last time on A Faith in Trials, we found out that Mama and Daddy are starting to have some problems, and Mama's at the hospital with Grandma and going through radiation in New Orleans, and Daddy's beside himself. Let's continue with me and Jimmy narrating the story. 6:15 p.m. Eastern. In Washington, D.C., Amy Kathleen goes into Christine's room to check on her. Christine reassures her that she is fine, regardless of what is going on with her grandmother. Meanwhile, in the front lounge, Forever is not doing very well. She thinks about Aunt Lizzie. She is forlorn, wondering about how her great aunt would do. 6:15 p.m. Central. I just finished dinner at the Holy Spirit Club, but decided not to go to the Wednesday evening devotional because I had 2 exams tomorrow. So I'm in my room studying when Charlie walks in. Man, I'm sorry about your grandmother. Man, she's okay, Charlie. Cancer is more complicated than that, Charlie said, getting up and walking out the door. Honestly, I can't stay here. I'm going to the Center for Public Affairs to study. 7 p.m. Central. As J.R. is studying in the Public Affairs Library, Charlie and Dave Smith are arguing in the living room. J.R. asked me to be his suite mate because I was a prep school jock. I won All-American Texas. Thing is, Dave, it's like this way. Even though I'm legally blind, you gotta know this. I am a hell of a good wide receiver. And you're just a defensive end, Charlie said. Cut it out, Charlie, Dave said. There are other things that matter to him more than just quickness. I know that family more than you do. Not if you live with a Hendrick. According to J.R., there's one thing his dad taught him that matters. Prowess. Dave gets up and goes to study in the computer lab at Holden Hall. We got to go to September 15th. (3:20 a.m. Eastern). Forever wakes up crying and goes into the mansion home chapel to pray and mourn. Amy Kathleen walks in to find her there, and Amy Kathleen is carrying a cup of coffee. and she sits down beside Forever. "You're worried about Grandma, aren't you?" Amy Kathleen said. "Leave me alone," Forever said. "Look, how about when we get out of school, we can call her and find out how she's doing?" "No! It might be worse than we were thinking. I can't live with that." "I can't live without that with Mama and Daddy knowing. Look, I called Aunt Betsy last night. They're having Grandma transferred to Dallas for radiation. Your parents and grandfather will know." 3:20 a.m. Central. In New Orleans, a resident by the name of Clay Bryant talks to the nurses about how, with Elizabeth Swain, she will be transferred to Dallas under the combined care of radiation oncologist Dr. Jonathan Weston and Dr. Noah Haynes. Haynes had been getting reports regarding Elizabeth from Dr. Theodore. The three oncologists would work together to oversee the rest of Elizabeth's care. Meanwhile, while in his hotel suite, Jim is feeling hopeless and helpless to know what to do about his relationship with Betsy. Several hours ago, at the casino, he had bumped into his old flame, Laurel Roby. She flew from Phoenix to New Orleans to get away from her boyfriend because they had another fight over the baby. And she was soliciting for Jim. She was soliciting for Jim to run away with her, but he was too busy trying to find a way to win his wife's heart back. 5:30 a.m. At the Sibley, JR is swimming with Charlie Nation and C.B. Coleman. We prayed for you last night at last night's devotional. Personally, we missed you. What happened? CB asked. Too exhausted today. I had to go study last night, JR said. When you could go on groping there with Jennifer for Powers last night. Shut up, Charlie. JR and CB say in collectively. 7 a.m. JR is having cinnamon rolls at the Holy Spirit Club with Stoney Rosen and C.B. Coleman. Again, JR scrambles over his parents' issues at the breakfast table. 8 a.m. Central. No, 9 a.m. Central. At Texas Tech Health Science Center, JR is meeting with Dr. Demetrius Nelson. spoke about the test results. Came back. And the doctor in D.C. and JR are right. His testosterone levels are low. So, I'm going to be increasing the doses to 200 milligrams every 2 weeks, Dr. Nelson said. Now I have to, as he had to address the anemia. Now hold up a second, Uncle Carl said. It is something that has to be addressed. Check with Dr. Bertrand, the Hendrick family doctor. He has the blood details on his father and him, Uncle Carl said in a furious tone. Hell, take my blood sample for Pete's sake. Calm down, Uncle Carl. So what do we do next? I want you to drop by Tuesday morning and get some more tests done. We'll know these results Tuesday afternoon. I'm also going to start you on an iron regiment starting today, Dr. Nelson said. I'm sorry. If I knew more, I could tell you. 9:30 a.m. Central. As JR is taking his Principles of Public Affairs exam, Betsy, Jim, and Dr. Theodore meet in Elizabeth's room. She may be responding well to radiation, Dr. Theodore said. I'll run some x-rays when she gets back home. The early response of Mrs. Hendrick, everything is going to be the way it should. You see, Betsy, honey, there is some hope. I told you, give me some alone time, Betsy said, shooting her husband a frozen glare. 9:55 a.m. Just finished my Principles of Public Affairs exam, walked outside of West Hall, and called Daddy to see how things are going. He's feeling kind of worn, saying he felt like he destroyed his marriage with Mama. He called Christine only to have lambasted and called her dork. Boy, I'm going to call your coach and get that suspension removed, Jim said. I joined with Hugh Sibley back in 1978 to 1980 to give Texas Tech that endowment for that nasty indoor pool that you guys are swimming in. Least thing they can do is end that suspension and put you back on that team where you belong. 1 p.m. John Dustin's motor home in New Orleans. It's just unbelievable, Kyle said to his father. Grandma's having radiation in the cancer center here in New Orleans. Mama's there. Seems like Jim Hendrick don't give a crap. Your mother was the woman who got away, John Dustin said. I can't let her get away this time. Where are you going? Madison asked. I'm not leaving Betsy alone for that scoundrel to go grab again. I'm hopping over to the hospital and finding her. I'm going to find her mother to repair collateral damage. What's a little journey for me? I've got to find your mama. 1:30 p.m. At the hospital, Elizabeth is asleep, and John Dustin walks in with a cowboy hat and leather outfit. "Dear you," John said. "Had an emergency," Betsy and John say to in unison. "Well, come back to Washington." "I don't care." "You know, we really had something back in the day when Junior was sick. I helped you take him to the hospital in Dallas. I made sure he ate. We can do the same thing. Let me help you now." "That is so sweet of you. So sweet of you. Jim just thinks about himself. You're there and care about me when I'm in trouble. If he means his vows seriously, would you guys be committed?" "Twice. Then he should apologize and be a real man." 3 p.m. Central. Jim agrees to meet Betsy in the hospital hallway, and they start talking. "Hey, honey, I want you to know I apologize for acting the way I did. I know I was being insensitive to you and your mama." Saw John Dustin. "And I'll hold it. Why the hell did you go do that? You know how I feel about him," Jim said. "Why do you care?" "Blowhard. I know he's been roaming around, and I have suspicions to know that Romer is trying to take casino money off of my friends. He's affectionate and gentle, where you are cold, sadistical and callous, egotistical and callous. And right now, don't you come around. Leave me alone," Betsy said, cursing under his breath. Jim walks to the elevator and calls for a cab to take him back to the hotel. 3:30 p.m. Central. Back at the hotel, Jim rings up Laurel, who is also lonesome because she got into another fight with her boyfriend earlier, like Jim had with that. So they agreed to go to her room to have a little coitus. Jim then offers to pay for $80,000 for hotel expenses and essentials, and she decided to reconcile with Ezra, or maybe go her own way. 5 p.m. Eastern. Betsy calls the family in Washington, D.C., telling Amy, Kathleen, and Christine that she and Jim would be separated because of some honesty and trust issues. Betsy says that despite the separation, she should be home in a week. She advises them not to tell JR what's going on, as this would destroy him emotionally. 5 p.m. At the airport in New Orleans, Jim stops off at a little Italian place, Piece of Heaven restaurant called Othel's. An Italian restaurant where a combination of beef, spaghetti, marinara with some beer to ease his troubles away. 7:55 p.m. The charter jet carrying the Hendrick party departs out of the Big Easy, bound for Baltimore, Washington, D.C. International Airport. To hell with the Big Easy, Jim said as the plane takes off, noting that he was planning on having an open relationship with his problem because of his problems with Betsy. It wasn't that easy, wasn't it? David Rosenberg said. Oh, y'all, come on, Avery Covington said. Jim, I'm sorry about the shape of your marriage, but you have to admit, business got done. Yeah, I guess. You could say that, but I'm beginning to see that JR has a point. Maybe he has the right to be angry with me, Jim said. But for the life of me, I can't see why my wife, for 25 years, would go back to seeking favor from that bonkers flirt. Here's what you do, David Rosenberg said. You get me to deposit the money in her bank account tomorrow morning. And maybe I'll call you, she'll call you when it patch things up. But don't expect too many miracles. You do that. Meanwhile, I'll see what I can do with the next day or so to run that idiot out of Galveston, New Orleans area. At the same time, in his dorm, JR had just woke up after having some severe muscular pain. Charlie, having felt sorry for his buddy, gave him some Anaprox that would help him sleep. 11 p.m. Eastern. The Hendrick plane arrives at Baltimore, Washington, D.C. International Airport. And Jim is in a very dour mood. To hell with them, Jim said in a melancholy tone. To hell with all of them. Well, let's just get you back to the mansion, David Rosenberg said. 3:40 a.m. Eastern. Jim wakes up from laying with his paramour to go upstairs to the Dream Team VIP lounge to pour himself 4 cups of coffee, black, with 4 cigarettes. 2 a.m. Central. At the nurses' station in New Orleans, 2 resident doctors ask a nurse to go in and check the vitals of Elizabeth so that they would, because they needed it in order to transfer her to Baylor Oncology Center in Dallas. The request was to be ordered by Dr. Haynes. He and Dr. Theodore would be monitoring her in Dallas. 4 a.m. Central. 2 nurses are talking about the preparation of the transfer of Elizabeth Swain to Louis Armstrong International Airport, where when her son Tom had set up a private jet for him and his wife Diane and Betsy to travel with Elizabeth to Dallas. Tom agreed to let Betsy ride with her mother in the ambulance, going to and from the hospital in New Orleans and in Dallas. Meanwhile, JR is up studying for his classes. In particular interest was his mass communications theory deal on public opinion and propaganda. The dean of the School of Communications, Dr. Satie, was the academic advisor for the Governmental Affairs Department that worked closely between political science and journalism. 4:50 a.m. Central. Dave Smith and I agreed that we would have an early breakfast. How are you, JR? Dave asked. Well, can't complain. Kevin says, you're going through a lot right now. Is your family okay? I try hard not to ponder on this. The Hendrick family problems, you know. I used to try to ignore it all. But we just let our own personality in the family would get in the way. But you're not letting us just be people. I wanted to get away from that. So that's why I'm here. Well, let's get you to Dunkin' Bell so that you can have some donuts. Over breakfast, Dave and I shared a lot. He talked about how he was raised by good, solid parents, who his father was a coach in the school system, and his mother was a Christian counselor. I told him I believe that my parents' problems would eventually make themselves be solved out. 5 a.m. Rosalind, the night charge nurse, begins the process of handling the transfer order, which would take place with the ambulance arriving and leaving at 6 a.m. 5:30 a.m. Back at the nurse's station in New Orleans, a young resident walks towards his pad at the nurse's station and barks out orders. Mrs. Swain's daughter and son are here. He points to a Chinese orderly. Data, why don't you go ahead and get her ready for transfer? Nurse Kendall, we need the mount for the stretcher, and everything needs for wheelchair airlift. Everything. 6 a.m. Central. The ambulance carrying Elizabeth and Betsy depart from the New Orleans Cancer Center bound for Louis Armstrong International Airport. 6:20 a.m. Central. At the gate, ambulance and police arrive to help see the family off. Elizabeth stands up from her stretcher and sits in the boarding wheelchair lift. Dr. Haynes motions for private. Plagium Zetson, Haynes says, as he accompanies Betsy, Tom, and Diane aboard the plane. 6:35 a.m. Central. In Dave's car, we continued our conversation from the restaurant. His town? I love it. Where else can you get missionaries from the Assemblies of Christ to show up in your dorm and teach you some of their doctrines? We have missionaries from my church, JR. And when you need to do as asked, Dave said. Yeah, but I don't see them proselytizing at the University Center, Memorial Square, or all over the science and English and philosophy buildings. (6:40 a.m.) This is airport operations. This vessel is clear for departure, air traffic control said. Check your vital signs, a man on their LVN said. A whole flurry of activity happens as hands extend for blood pressure, oxygen, and temperature, as talking monitoring systems give the readout. Well, Betsy and Tom, let's clear some things up now. All this fighting, you got about who found out. That doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm getting better now. This is going to be a beautiful morning. No time to pout. No time to pretend to be soft, Elizabeth said, still in pain. Dr. Haynes issues a mild tranquilizer, and the jet gets ready to take off. 6:50 a.m. The plane taxis down the runway and departs from New Orleans, bound for Dallas Love Field. There's the first time for everything. Wouldn't you agree, Betsy? Elizabeth said. Betsy let out an awful sounding mouthful, trying to fight back tears. 8 a.m. Central. Christine is peeved when Jim pulls her out of school for the day in order to stopped by the U.S. House chamber in order to hear a vote and declaration on the economic care package that President Clinton had attached on welfare reform. Give me a moment as I pull that out.